Hi, I'm Amanda Craig, and this is the Challenge A Semester 1, Week 2 video. Okay, here we go. So here are your homework assignments for this week. Last week, you were asked to read pages 1 through 7. So if you haven't already done that, make sure you do it this week. There are some vocabulary on page 7. If you didn't do that in week 1, you'll need to do that this week. But you're going to read pages 1 through 19, which is all of lesson 1, and then just a small part of lesson 2. You're going to copy and learn the new grammar rules, 9 through 12, 14, 25, 32 through 35. And at least some of those, I think, are a review from last week as well. And then you're going to complete exercises 2, 5 through 9, and 11 in your Purple Henley Latin book. Okay, so we've already gone over the first declension of Terra. And now the next thing is rules for gender, which we talked about last time because it was one of our grammar rules. But in English, gender is simple. The nouns naming men or animals are masculine. Nouns naming women and female animals are feminine. And the noun naming things are neuter. But in Latin, nouns naming things are sometimes masculine, sometimes feminine, and sometimes neuter. And each declension will have its own rules for determining the gender. And it's important to learn these genders when you are learning the vocabulary. So for the first declension gender rules, which we talked about last week, rule number 32 is noun naming male persons are masculine, like nata, natai, sailor is masculine because sailors were usually men. But then all other nouns in the first declension are feminine. So terra, terrae, earthland, that's feminine. Porta, portae, gate, that's feminine. So all the other words are feminine. Use of verbs. Later on in the semester, you are going to start conjugating verbs, kind of like we decline noun. Verbs all have their own endings and they get conjugated. But for right now, they're just going to go ahead and give you the, the third person singular verb and the third person singular meaning in the third person plural and the third person meaning. So in Latin, the pronouns I, we, you, he, she, it, they, when they're used as subjects of the verbs, they are not ordinarily expressed separately. They're contained in the ending of the verb. So sometimes you'll come across a sentence that doesn't have a word at the beginning of the sentence in the nominative. And in that case, you're going to use the ending of the verb as a pronoun subject. So here we have orat, which means he, she, or it prays. The he, she, or it is contained in the ending at, or just the t. And orant means they pray, and they is contained in the ending ant, or just the nt. So in your first set of vocabulary, you're going to learn orat, orant, he, she, it prays, they pray, ladat, ladant, is he, she, it praises, and they praise. Vidit, vident, he, she, it sees, and they see. So those are the verbs that you're going to start with. You see here that this T ending, AT ending, contains 3 English pronouns, he, she, or it. So how do you know which one you're going to use? Well, if you're talking about a woman, you're going to use she. If you're talking about a man, you're going to use he. But if you don't know who you're talking about, it's okay just to use he. So when you're translating using these endings, it's okay to just use he. You don't have to put he, she, it, praise on every single one just because you don't know which one it is. So here are some examples of sentences that do not have a nominative subject. The subject is contained in the verb ending. So we have this T right here, and so that's he prays. We have the NT, so that's they pray. So you got to watch to see if it's the T or the NT, so you know which one to use. Mariam vident. Well, if you look here, that's not the subject. That ends in, the noun ends in am, which is accusative. So you're going to pull the nt, which is they. They see Mary. So now we know who we're talking about. So the next word, barat, we see the T. We're talking about Mary. Mary is praying. That also could be Mary prays, Mary is praying, Mary does praise. Those are all valid translations for the present tense verb. When a noun is used as the subject, the pronoun is not translated in English. So if you have that nominative subject ending, then you will not use the pronoun. But it is still going to, they're still going to match the endings. So here we have not die, and that is a plural, the sailors, or rot. So we have the plural ending in T. So they're gonna agree with each other. Mariai, or rot, and I'm not sure I'm getting these pronunciations right, just so you know. Mary prays, and you've got the T ending, so that's singular. So they're gonna agree in person and number. So Natai and Mariai are in the nominative case. When the subject is singular, the verb is going to be, the singular verb is going to be used. And when the subject is plural, the plural form is going to be used. And for right now, they're mainly working in the third person. There are first person and second person verbs, but you'll get to that later. Right now in your vocabulary words, they're just going to give you third person singular and third person plural verbs for you to work with. All right, here are some rules that you will need to learn that are in your purple book, and these are in boxes in your purple book. The subject of a finite verb is in the nominative case. So that's the noun that's in the nominative case. A finite verb agrees with its subject in number and person. That's what I was just talking about, where the verb agrees with, if it's a singular, now it's a singular subject, you're gonna have a singular verb. It's a third person subject, you're gonna have a third person verb ending. The verb usually stands last in the sentence. In English, our verbs kind of stand in the middle. They kind of come in between the subject and the direct object, but in Latin, they usually are last. And there's some exceptions to that you'll get to later. And then they're going to introduce some adverbs to you in the vocabulary, and adverbs usually stand immediately before the word they modify. And as you know, adverbs frequently modify verbs. So it would be right before the verb. All right, here is how to diagram a Latin sentence. This is straight from your Henley Latin book. It's a little bit different than, this looks pretty the same as what you may have learned already in your English grammar. But you're gonna have a subject and the verb, and it's separated by a line. And then if you have a modifier like an adjective or an adverb, then they're gonna go underneath what it modifies. So that's pretty the same. It gets a little bit different when you get into, the first time I think it's different might be indirect object is a little bit different. So, but this looks pretty the same from what I learned in my English grammar. So coming up, you are gonna have some exercises where you diagram some select sentences. The accusative case. We've been talking about the nominative case, which is the subject of the sentence. Now we're going to talk about the accusative case. In the first declension, the accusative case is going to end in am for the singular. And then for the plural, it's going to end in as, the macron as. So here we've got the sailors praise Mary. Mary is singular, so we're going to put the am on the end. And like we said, the verb stands last in the sentence, so it's going to go subject, direct object, verb. And you can see here this is a plural subject, so we've got a plural ending. In this sentence, Mary is the direct object of the verb praise. In English, Mary is in the objective case, but in Latin, the objective case is called the accusative case. And a rule you're going to learn is the direct object of a transitive verb is an accusative case. And here's how to diagram a sentence with a direct object. Again, this is straight from your book. This is similar to how I learned it in my English grammar. And the difference is when you get to the direct object, you're going to do a line, but it stops at the horizontal line and it doesn't go all the way below. So that's how you put in the direct object. All right, the genitive case. The genitive case, there's two different ways that the genitive case is translated in English. It's either an of phrase, which we would normally call an of phrase, like a prepositional phrase, but here it's going to be in the genitive. And then you also have your possessive case, like apostrophe S for the singular or S apostrophe. So here are some examples. We've got Mary's glory. So you see here we have possessive, Mary apostrophe S, and Mary is singular. So we're gonna actually put the subject first, Gloria, and then we're gonna put Mary I after the word, that the genitive goes after the word. This also could be translated the glory of Mary. So just go ahead and put that genitive right after the word that it modifies. You'll see that often in your exercises with the genitive case. So here, the glory of the province, and again, that could have been the province's glory. Both are valid translations. So when you're translating, you might just want to mix up the way that you translate it. Just practice both. Again, this is in the nominative case, Gloria, and provinciae, that is in the genitive singular case with that AE ending. Now here we have the sailor's victory. Now in English, when we have a plural possessive, it's an S and then an apostrophe. So that's how we know it's plural, because the apostrophe is after it. So we're going to add the genitive plural ending at the end. So in the phrases, the Latin genitive, which is all underlined right here, they're translated the English possessive, apostrophe S or S apostrophe, and the English of phrases. All right, your grammar rules for this week. You're going to go over grammar rules 9 through 12. They're on page 2 of your blue Henley Latin book. They go over the accent and quantity of syllables. You can talk to your parent teacher. You might just want to read those over. You might not need to extensively memorize those particular rules word for word. On page number 3, number 14, you've got nouns have gender, number, case, and declension. So that's important for declining them. And there's 5, we've talked about this before, there's 5 declensions in Latin, and they can be distinguished by their endings of the genitive singular. So here's a chart with all of them. And as you go through each declension, you're going to learn all of these, and these never change. The genitive singular for each one of these declensions is always going to be these endings for each declension. So we have the AE, long I, is, us, CI. So you're going to be learning those declensions one by one and their endings. All right, and review grammar rules number 31, which is the first declension with Tara, Terai as our model, and then the gender rules for the first declension. All right, you're going to begin just a little bit of the second declension this week, and you're going to have one exercise that's due for exercise 11 relates to the second declension. So the rule is all nouns whose genitive singular ends in the long I belong to the second declension. So we're on a new declension now. Some nouns of the second declension have us in the nominative, and some have The nominative that ends in us are generally masculine. If it's not masculine, then it will probably tell you in the vocabulary that it's an exception. I have a little typo here. That should actually be, let me find my pointer. Nope. That's not it. Hold on. All right, serve. There should not be an I right there. It's actually SERVUS, because the stem is just serve. And so you've got serve us, serve. Again, don't follow me for my pronunciation, but you see right here that genitive is the long I. The nominative that ends in are always neuter, and they're declined like bellam, belli. So next week you're going to get to bellam, but this week you're just going to talk about cerise. And you've got remember the song, right? It's us, e, o, e, orum, east, os, east. And if you look at these, you can see that there's some similarities to the first declension. So we have the genitive singular and the nominative plural, both have the same ending. That's similar. We have this was an arum, and now it's orum. So that's a little, and this was am, and now it's um, and this was as, and now it's os. So a lot of these, and this was a long a, and now it's a long o. You can see that this is kind of like the o endings, and the first declension more had a in them. So that's just a way to kind of tell them apart. And then your gender rule, these are generally masculine. So unless it tells you otherwise in the vocabulary, if you see the us, the us on a second declension, just assume it's masculine unless they tell you otherwise. All right, and that is the end of the week 2 video. So I will see you guys next week for week 3.